that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Welcome to Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
We got a donation.
Great.
Yeah, it was not a huge donation, but it was a very welcome donation.
Helps,
Every little bit helps. What I'm looking for from the audience out there is donations.
Only $100,000. Mere bag of cash.
Why do you say thousand instead of million? We don't need much. We need a few dollars. And if we don't get it by the time that the appeal is over, and the appeal will be over about the beginning of spring, if we don't get it, I'll make it up out of my own pocket. But we are looking for donations, and the way you give them is go to BrattleboroTV.org, and you go to the bottom of the screen, and you click on the thing that says
Energy Week.
Huh? No, you say it says support local programming, and that will take you to a place where you can use PayPal or a credit card to make a donation. And
you tell them
a little bit below that, there's a thing that says comments. And
comments.
And so you put in a comment saying this is for
Week.
Energy Week, and then it gets credited to our show, because changes in cable law interpretation that were brought about at the behest of the currently beleaguered administration in Washington have put public access television into a position where it has to raise its own money, some of its own money.
Well, you didn't support the right wing enough.
I should explain what we're doing here in case somebody is coming on who doesn't know what's going on. Every day I get a group of 10 to 15 news items, and I put together a synopsis of each with a link to the original article, and they get assembled into a post that goes onto my blog, which is called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And
I read them.
And poor Tom gets, I don't know, he gets I put about 20 or 21 usually of these things up.
3 a day.
Yeah, 3 a day, roughly. Not always, but usually. At a separate blog where Tom can get to them and see what we are going to talk about on the following Thursday. And so today being Thursday, the 21st of November, we're starting a week ago today with articles that appeared on November 14th.
So they started a week ago Monday. What we're talking about...
No, they started a week ago today.
Yeah, that's right. The first day of the week is Friday. It's Thursday, isn't it?
The first day of our week for the show is Thursday.
Right.
We don't do today, we do a week ago today. It's all very confusing. It was intentionally done that way, but that's, the way things operate. We don't want anybody to know anything except for a few people who can understand or something. I don't know. But anyway, we're having fun, obviously, talking about things that are dreadful.
Some of the things are.
Some of the things are dreadful, and unfortunately we've seen some of that in the last couple of weeks. But we are starting on November 14th. If you go to the blog, geoharvey.com, you can click on the calendar for the 14th of November, and you'll see 15 articles or so. And the articles that we read from the 14th will be available at the post that you go to. The same is true of every other day, and we're going to keep you apprised of the days as we go through.
Some of these are worth looking at.
Some of them are.
We could spend, as I've said, a whole show on some of these.
We could indeed.
So I'll try to notify you if there's one that you should be looking up.
Yes.
And you go to George's page and you click on the link, it'll come up, and
there you go.
Read the article.
Okay, we're starting on the 14th of November. We have a picture.
Yeah, we do.
Of a Volvo electric bus.
You wouldn't know it was electric, would you?
And that is
That's a nice bus.
article in Clean Technica. Some of these buses are unbelievable. Some of those articulated buses will carry well over 100 people.
That's correct. 150. This one.
This one is
says
150.
150 passengers. Record European electric bus order. 157 Volvo buses and Volvo trucks launches urban electrical trucks.
Okay, this is
That's two
separate things that happen to get thrown together in an article. Usually, when I come across an article that does that, I don't post it because I like things to be clean. But in this particular case, it was a good article.
They're both about Volvo. And,
they're both about Volvo.
Volvo has been making buses and trucks for a long, long time, but
Yes.
they just don't bring them over here.
They don't bring them here. Volvo is not widely known in North America for buses and trucks. However, in Europe, the company is quite a big producer of commercial vehicles, and it is now rolling out some big electric buses.
Got a couple of quick takeaways here.
Yeah.
The electric articulated buses that you're seeing in the picture will run in Gothenburg, Sweden. All of them, all 157.
In Gothenburg?
That's what the article said. The buses can carry 150 passengers with energy consumption 80% lower than that of a corresponding diesel bus.
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense. They will be charged at quick charge stations along the route.
Yeah, that's one of the strategies that's used in these things. Typically, in a thing like that, electric buses pull up to the bus station or the bus stop.
Buried in the ground is a charger.
Or overhead.
Or overhead.
Some of them are overhead. Yeah. And the charger is in a place where it won't be available for human beings to step on accidentally. But they don't. You don't notice.
If they do, they get charged, won't they?
Yes.
Well, also Volvo is introducing 16 and 27-ton electric trucks.
Yes.
That's a good-sized truck.
That's a good-sized truck.
Medium and large trucks, not
Yes.
giant trucks,
Not
but
giant.
medium and large, but kind of trucks, even, what would you say, trailer trucks that go around town, not the ones that go from
City
state
to
to
city,
state.
yeah. Okay, our next item is from CNN. And we still have a bus on the screen.
Yeah, but we don't need to get the bus on the screen. I'll put us both up here.
There you go.
The climate crisis will profoundly affect the health of every child alive today. This is an interesting article. There's lots of pics in it, lots of links in it, and this is one of the ones I think, if you got the time, you could usefully
Spend
look
some
up.
time looking at this, particularly if you have children or intend to have children or whatever.
Well, there's a scary 5-minute video in it about the climate crisis.
Yes. If the world continues to produce the same amount of CO2 emissions, children born today live in a world 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius warmer by their 71st birthday, according to a report in the medical journal The Lancet. And The Lancet is one of the most important medical journals in the world.
I mean, it's a serious journal.
It's a serious journal, and it says that is really bad for their health. I want to point something out here. A lot of people are going to hear this and say, well, 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit is not...
Doesn't sound like much.
Doesn't sound like much. But think about the fact that 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit, well, 7 degrees Fahrenheit, is the difference between 28 degrees and 35 degrees. And
That's significant.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like much until you realize that somewhere in the course of all that, everything melts.
Yeah.
And, you know, the difference between living in a world covered with snow and living in a world where the ground is dry is enormous. There used to be a saying, there still is a saying, and the saying is, year of snow, year of plenty.
A year of snow?
Year
Okay.
of snow, year of plenty. And the reason for that, snow is called white manure.
I was just going to say, snow acts as a fertilizer.
Right, and what it does is it protects the ground from getting too cold.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the winter, if you have snow on the ground, that day of 10 below is not going to penetrate the ground as deeply as if there's no snow, which kind of tells you why warming temperatures can mean locally short-term colder situations.
What's the difference between climate and weather?
Exactly. And what happens in a situation where there is less snow is there's less activity in the earth because the
ground gets colder.
ground gets colder, and the critters,
Earthworms go to sleep.
earthworms don't just go to sleep; they can freeze to death. Yeah, they go to sleep. Yeah,
Permanently.
they have to go deeper in order to stay out of trouble. So,
Well, from the article here, I never heard it spoken quite this way, but a polluted air exposure is equated with smoking a pack a day.
well, you know, when I was in college, we knew that going to college in New York City was like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah, probably. And you were in one of the dirtiest parts of New York City.
Yeah,
atmosphere-wise.
I went to school at one time at Columbia University.
Okay.
And I remember...
That's a little bit cleaner.
It's a little bit cleaner, but I remember seeing on television, you know, I was in a student lounge or something like that, and there was TV going, and there was an announcement that said that somebody had measured the air for quality on Wall Street, and they found that the air on Wall Street was... it had enough carbon monoxide that you had to have not just a respirator, but a
breather,
some sort of breather to remove it. I think it was carbon filtration removes it or something.
Oh, okay.
But there was not enough oxygen in the air to support the use of such a thing. And they could actually tell that, you know, testing people for their IQs on Wall Street in 1967, they could see that just working on Wall Street
was lowering
drove their IQs down. You know, I said, no wonder I'm getting bad grades. But and everybody laughed, and I didn't get bad grades.
Well, we got a picture coming up here.
Oh, we do. There we go. This picture is supposed to have a rainbow in it, but you know what? I find it so hard to believe that that's a rainbow, because there's no indication of any sunshine. And rainbows require sunshine. I don't know what that is. Anyway.
Could be a phony picture. It might be real because the sun could be back here somewhere.
Well, the sun would have to be...
It would have to be back here somewhere.
Yeah, it would have to be... I don't know. I can't figure an explanation of it. Anyway, what do you got for a title?
That's the Capitol building for those who miss it.
Yes.
How to cut U.S. carbon pollution by nearly 40% in 10 years.
This is hopeful.
Now, that's significant.
This is published in The Atlantic. A study from economists at Columbia University found that a tax plan with broad support in Congress could, and they're talking about a plan now that has broad support in Congress.
Well, that's stretching it.
It has
bipartisan support.
It has bipartisan support.
It's limited.
Limited bipartisan support. All right. It has narrow support, but it does have a couple of Republicans hanging on to it. Would reduce American carbon pollution by almost 40% within a decade. It would go well beyond the commitment the U.S. made under the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. I want to point out that it would not take us quite as far as we need to go, according to the IPCC, to keep us below 1.5 degrees Celsius for climate change.
Well, under the plan, it's interesting. The government would charge companies for every ton of greenhouse gas they emit.
Yeah.
There's a small amount they're going to charge them, but they're going to charge them for all of it.
Right.
And instead of spending that money, the government would immediately send it back to Americans as a tax cut or check.
Yes.
This is why it's revenue neutral. This is weird, but...
Well, it means that you and I, because we're not rich and spending lots of money on carbon, on things that emit carbon, would benefit from it.
As you said, it would slash carbon pollution by almost 40% within a decade.
Right. And it would put it would adjust the cost of propane, heating oil, gasoline, and so forth up.
The article's interesting. There's a lot of details on this, and we couldn't really, even if we wanted to, go into the details on this show. But if you want to find out more about the details, look it up.
Yeah.
And according to this article, coal is basically gone in 2030 under the carbon.
I got news for you, Tom.
It's gone before that.
The Dow Jones Coal Index, the last time I looked, was at 16.40. Now,
What does that mean?
well, the Dow Jones Coal Index in 2008 was at 735. It's
That's what that means.
It's lost 98% of its
Wow.
value. It has absolutely, it crashed under Obama, and it tried to grow under Trump, and now it's at the lowest price, lowest level it has ever been.
Amazing.
So, and we've got other things about coal. It's just not going to survive.
Well, let's talk about buses again.
Well-
These aren't run by coal.
Before you do,
Yeah.
I just want to point out that we're moving to Friday, November 15th. And this article...
We certainly are.
Yes. This article is in Clean Technica. What do you got?
Los Angeles, it's another story about buses.
Another story about buses.
Los Angeles places the largest single bus order in U.S. history. 130 BYD buses. And BYD means Build Your Dreams.
Yeah.
And it's a Chinese company that makes buses, but they're going to make them in America.
These particular buses are going to be made in America, yes. The Los Angeles Department of Transportation and BYD announced the largest electric bus contract in U.S. history. The company will build 137 of its K7M electric buses for the city's public transportation system at a factory in Lancaster, California.
Now, these are kind of small buses.
Yeah.
They're 30 feet long,
Yeah.
22 seats.
So
So they're not huge. They're not like we just saw with
the
the
ones we
articulated
just
buses.
saw were 6 times as big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're
They're
gonna be-
buses.
They're buses. And
They're-
they're going to
they're-
be used by Los Angeles in certain areas where they make sense.
Yes.
Well, it's
And
just like right
honestly-
here in town. I mean, we got small buses running through town here.
Yeah, and we could replace those buses with electric. And you know what? I think we'd have a whole lot more people using the buses if we doubled or tripled the number of them.
I think you're right.
Oh,
yeah.
If I want to go someplace on a bus,
It takes too long.
I go there.
And then you gotta
Well,
wait,
for
you gotta
example, if
wait.
I want to go to Walmart, I have to go at like 10 o'clock or whatever it is. I forgot the time.
Yeah, you can't get back till about
And-
3 in the afternoon.
No, it's not quite that bad. But the bus drives from there to Hinsdale, and then it comes back. And
Yeah.
I have a choice. Either I'm at Walmart for half an hour, or I have to wait for the next bus, which is 2 hours after
2
that.
hours later.
So it
And,
would...
spending 2 hours in Walmart's kind of a waste of time.
Well, yes. Okay. We have a picture here.
Well, let's see. We still.
Oh, you have more?
I got a couple of things.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
They're going to reduce emissions by 80%.
Yes.
And Lancaster, where they're going to be building them, is 80 miles north of LA.
Yes.
So that the bottom line is electric buses, and this goes right across the board, are more reliable, cost less to maintain, and have lower fuel costs than conventional buses.
Yes.
And as an aside, it says the quieter ride is nice too.
Yes. And that reduction of 80%, by the way, is 80% of the energy. It's not. I don't think it's emissions.
Well, the article said emissions.
Yeah.
But it's also
I
they're
think
saving tremendous amount of energy.
An 80% reduction in emissions, assuming that the electricity that is used to charge the buses is generated from gas. If it's generated from wind power and solar,
They're going to save more than that.
it saves more than
Yeah,
that.
I hear you.
Okay, our next item is from
This is an interesting
CNN.
one. We got a
and
picture here.
This is
Rather
what
nice-looking building.
I had to laugh and cry at the same time when I heard.
That guy's
read
up
this
to his
article.
waist in water.
Yeah, well, you know.
Now that's an ancient palace or an old
Yeah.
palace. It was a palace, and now it's an Italian council chamber,
Yes.
which is what the article is going to say. Italian council chamber is flooded, ironically, immediately after rejecting measures on climate change.
This must have
God
been
was looking at him.
This must have been quite a picture. Veneto Regional Council was flooded for the first time in its history. Ironically, the chamber was flooded 2 minutes after the Majority League, Brothers of Italy, and Forza, Italian parties, rejected our amendments to tackle climate change, one of the council members said.
This is a good article. There's a lot of pictures.
A
in
lot
this
of
article.
pictures. This
There's
is
a video.
Yes.
And the video shows the water going through the palace. not an exciting video, but it's not the kind of thing you want going through your palace.
I have on a couple of occasions been in places where buildings got flooded in ways that were, I mean, this wasn't just an unoccupied basement got flooded. In one case, I had a place where I worked and got flooded, and in another case, it was a school that I went to when I was young. Some of the rooms that we depended on got flooded, and this can be an impressive thing when it happens.
I would imagine. Well, Venice, this is from the article, has been brought to its knees by the worst flooding in more than 50 years.
Yes.
Okay. And you think of Venice as it's being all water, and it is, but it wasn't ready for this.
Yeah.
Okay, and its chamber happens to be located on Venice's Grand Canal.
Right.
And among the rejected amendments were measures to fund renewable sources to replace diesel buses with more efficient and less polluting ones, and to scrap polluting stoves and reduce the impact of plastics.
You know, I was surprised.
I was watching these guys.
Yeah, I was surprised to read about buses in Venice. I've never been there, and my mind is just too attuned to the idea of canal building.
Yeah.
And, looking at a map.
Other floating buses.
That would be nice. There are a lot of streets in Venice, and buses tend to move around faster than boats.
Pull that picture back up again. Look at that guy. He's struggling. He's at least up to his knees.
Yeah, he's taking a photograph, by the way.
Oh, is he?
That's why he's got that.
Well, I wonder what that building is on the right in there. It does not look like a castle.
It doesn't. It looks like it might be some sort. Well, obviously it's a tower. It looks like it could be a bell tower or a.
It could very well be. It's square, but it doesn't look new.
No,
those windows look old.
That's not a new building.
Yeah,
but it's architecturally separate from the. I mean, it's of an entirely separate design from the palace.
Yeah, definitely architecturally separate.
It might be
So it's
attached, but
functional
it's
or something.
yeah. Okay.
Well, let's move along here because
Our next item.
This is going to be the opposite of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, our next item is from CNN.
As deadly Australian bushfires rage, and we're going to be hitting this again.
Yes.
Sydney may be running out of water.
This is really, really frightening. Australia's deadly bushfires are driven by the worst drought in decades. We're going to have a map of Australia so that people can understand where this is happening.
We're going to be talking about this 3 times today.
Yeah, but fears are now growing that things could get even worse. Sydney, home to 5 million people, this is not a tiny village, faces a warning that its dams, the reservoirs at its dams, could run dry by 2022.
This is drinking water.
This is drinking water, according to CNN affiliate 7 News. This is a
There's
problem.
a video in this. It's 2 minutes of fire, and it's scary.
Yeah.
It is. The drought's the worst on record.
Yes.
Since June, Sydney has been under restrictions which limit water usage. Well,
Yes.
so they all have down there.
Yes.
More than 1,300 firefighters are battling the flames. And it's also ravaging, as we'll find out, Queensland, New South Wales. It's all over Australia.
All over Australia. And again,
the
we're going
country
to see that
is getting
in the map.
hotter and drier, and the rains have stopped coming. This time last year, the dams were 65% full. Currently, they're 45%.
Yeah, this is a problem.
This is a big problem. We'll touch base with it again.
Okay,
we'll move along.
up to Saturday, November 16th.
And we got a picture coming up.
We have a picture, and we have an item from E&E News. What happened there?
I'm trying to figure
there
out
you
why
go.
I got it in 2
Well,
places.
you know, this is what happens when you depend on
I'll look at the
computers.
picture there. That's called a micro mill.
That's
That looked
a
too
micro mill.
to me.
No, that's not exactly micro.
Well, micro is in...
Like about 40% of the way from left to right, right above the bottom, there is a gigantic truck.
So it's not a micro mill, is it?
This is not a micro mill that would be micro in most people's imagination.
Well,
but
let's
it's
read what it
considered
says.
A micro steel mill.
U.S. readies the first wind-powered steel plant.
Interesting.
Well, it's only partially wind-powered.
Yeah, but even so, a $250 million Nucor Corp micro mill, micro in quotes, taking shape in Sedalia, Missouri. It will be the first U.S. steel production plant that will run on wind energy. A report last year from the group Mighty Earth noted that steel represented 7% of global carbon emissions worldwide in 2013.
Well, steel, it takes a lot of power
Yes.
to make.
Yes.
A lot of heat, a
Yes.
lot of power.
Yes.
And one of the things they're doing here is they're using electric furnaces
Right.
rather than coal-burning furnaces to burn this, to make the steel. And the electricity is coming from basically carbon-neutral sources.
Yes.
I mean, they're exchanging, they're trading credits.
They're trading credits, but they're introducing more renewable energy in order to get the steel mill. You know, it reminds me of when I was a kid, we would drive from the Chicago area to the Brattleboro area.
That's a long trip.
It's a long trip. And we kids would spend the summer at my grandmother's house.
Over in New Hampshire.
Over in New Hampshire, just across the river. A long walk from Brattleboro.
Yeah.
But I can remember, as a kid going into Sam's,
Okay.
which at that time really was an Army-Navy store.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
getting, my cousin wanted a war surplus Army mess kit so he could go camping. Going through Gary, Indiana, we would come across steel mills that had 14 huge smokestacks. I remember one of
Wow.
them. And my head would start to hurt about 15 minutes before we got to Gary, and it would continue to hurt for about an hour after we left.
Well,
And that was
according to the article,
pollution.
the steel industry is a major source globally of carbon emissions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and they also say that the Great Plains has an unlimited supply of wind.
Well, it's not unlimited, but
Well, that's what the article said. I mean, there's a lot of wind in the Great Plains.
more than we can use. Maybe that counts as unlimited. Okay, got more on that?
Well, it's just that they're using efficient electric arc furnace technology.
This is doing is it's making steel making more like aluminum making. Because aluminum, you need
Uses
that
a lot of
electricity
yep.
to get the aluminum out
Well,
of the ore.
it's a step in the right direction. I mean,
Yeah.
we need steel. If we can make it a better way, we're ahead of the game.
Yep. Now, the next item comes from Clean Technica, and it talks about something that we
We're
have.
talking about wind in the Midwest
The
again.
Chokeberry and Sierra Madre Wind Energy Project, we've mentioned before on this show, years ago.
We have.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, the article says the 3 gigawatt, that's big. The 3 gigawatt power project, wind project in Wyoming moves closer to approval. That's a big wind power
That's
project.
a big wind power project.
No, that's the biggest one in the U.S.
That is like, in terms of nameplate capacity, it's about 5 times as big as the
That's Yankee.
Vermont Yankee
Yeah.
nuclear power plant used
After
to be.
they re-
after
made
they
it bigger, yeah.
after they uprated it. The Chokeberry and Sierra Madre Wind Energy Project is slated to have a capacity of 3 gigawatts. If the huge Wyoming wind farm is completed, it will be the largest in the United States. The Bureau of Land Management recently released a favorable environmental impact assessment.
Well, this is big. It's nearly 220 acres.
No, it's bigger than 220. I'll bet it's 220,000 acres.
Well, the article said 220.00. So I don't know.
Well,
So it could have been 22,000, but they put the dot in the wrong place.
it might be.
Well, in any case, it could have as many as 1,000 wind turbines.
Yes. And that is.
And it could
And these would be
provide power.
big. They'd be big wind turbines.
They'd be good-sized wind turbines.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Not the biggest ones that GE's making.
But big for land-based.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Oh,
these
yeah.
land-based turbines are smaller than the ones
Smaller.
at sea. They have to be transported. So there's a limit to how big they can
Well,
be.
I think if they're talking 3 gigawatts and they're talking 1,000 turbines,
Talking about 3 megawatt
Yeah.
turbines.
which is good size for a land-based turbine.
Yep. They tend to be around 2 or a little bit bigger than that, I think. Should we move on?
Yeah, I think we should. We got a picture coming
We
up
have
here.
a picture, and
It's a graph.
It's a graph, and this is WGRZ.com.
Now, that's Buffalo, New York, and it shows you the temperatures over from 1970 to 2018.
Yes.
And they have been moving steadily upward.
Well, they tilted the graph. The sneaky Chinese politicians moved in, and
Oh, is that what happened? Trump have anything to do with
I
that?
think he did. Okay, what do you got?
Temperatures in Buffalo. Winter warming may lead, warming winters, winter warming, same thing, may lead to more snow for western New York. That's a paradox, which I think you're going to explain.
It's one of these things that we keep bringing up. The fact that the globe is getting warmer does not mean that we're going to have a warmer winter. And in some places, it can mean that the winter is colder.
It definitely means they're going to have more snow, and it explains
That's
that.
right. And this is really easy to explain. Climate data going back to 1970 show that Buffalo's average winter temperatures have warmed by 3.2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a lot. That means that Lake Erie stays open much longer.
Bingo.
By golly, 3.2 degrees and the lake stays open longer. Of course.
Of course.
How could you figure anything else would happen? And that means more water vapor rises off the lake each year during the winter. And that increases the amount of snow in Buffalo, which is already the snow capital of...
certainly of New York.
Certainly of New York.
A friend of mine went to college up there, and I remember him telling me about a snowstorm they had where it buried the entire first floor. In order to get out of the fraternity house, they had to jump out of the second story window.
Well, you know, I have told a story about a really bad storm we had in Illinois, about 35 miles west of Chicago. And school was closed down on Friday. And when I got into school on Monday, a little girl in my class, this is about 7th grade maybe, told me that she had waked up on Saturday morning and was desperately afraid because her window was covered with snow. And her window was on the second floor.
Wow.
And she went down, and you know, in those days how that was the time when new houses all had picture windows, regardless of what they looked out on.
Yeah.
You know, and she went downstairs and looked out the picture window and saw that the front yard was bare. And what had happened was during the night, the wind just came barreling down from the same quarter of the.
So the back of the house was all
back
covered
of the
with
house
snow.
was all covered with snow, and the
front of
front
the house.
had none. So it was easy to get out, but you know she was really afraid until she went downstairs, and then she spent the rest of the day wondering what had happened.
Well, a couple of quick takeaways from the article.
Yeah.
Over the past 50 years, the number of days with 6 inches or more on the ground has decreased from 34 days to 19 days.
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo, and last year, Buffalo got about a foot a month, but they got 5 feet in January.
Go figure. You know, this is what we're talking about, extreme weather.
Extreme weather.
So what does climate change mean? What does global warming mean? It means extreme weather.
Well, they wouldn't have gotten 5 feet in January if the lake was frozen.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, we're going to visit the Saudis today.
Yeah, and today, by the way, is November 17th. This is Sunday we're moving up to. We have an item from BBC, and I'm flipping pictures before I should. Go ahead.
Saudi Arabia has placed a preliminary evaluation. Whoops, that's what you're supposed to say.
Okay.
Saudi Aramco Flotation values oil giant at $1.7 trillion. They're going to have a hard time getting that.
Well, they're not going for 1.7 trillion. They're going for as much as they can get for 1.5% of the business. Let me read this. Saudi Arabia has placed a preliminary evaluation on state oil company Aramco of between 1.6 trillion and 1.7 trillion dollars. The company has published an updated prospectus for its initial public offering, seeking more than $25 billion for the sale of 1.5% of its shares.
Well, when I lived there, Aramco was privately owned. It was owned by about five or six oil companies.
Yeah.
And it was a city.
Yeah.
Now, the Aramco compound was probably bigger than Brattleboro.
Okay.
Okay, and people lived there, and they had stores and they had restaurants, and it was a city.
Yeah.
And they sold it to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Most of the stock is owned by the royal family.
Yes.
And now they're trying to turn some of that into cash.
Yes.
And I don't think they're going to be anywhere near as successful
Well, you
as
know,
they want.
If they turn that into $25 billion and then distribute that evenly among all the members of the royal family, that means everybody might get a couple $1,000.
Oh, the extended royal family.
Man,
Well,
the royal family is absolutely
the real
gigantic.
royal family is only about 7 people.
Oh, okay.
But then the extended royal family is about 1,000.
I thought it was more like 15,000.
I don't think so, but it could be. It's
I don't
a
know.
lot of people,
It's
but
hard
they
to
don't
figure.
count.
They don't count. Okay. Okay.
This would make it potentially the world's biggest IPO.
Yes.
What does that mean? Initial purchase order? Or
Initial public offering.
initial public offering.
Yeah.
And it says it's the world's most profitable company, posting $111 billion in net profit last year.
That's net profit.
Net profit. Wow.
Net profit.
Well,
that is a lot of
They
money.
have a lot of oil still. They've been pumping oil out of there since, 1940? And they still have a lot left.
Yes.
And it's close to the ground, so it's the cheapest oil in the world to extract.
And it's also about the sweetest.
And it's also clean, yes.
It's
Very good oil.
relatively low, or at least the last time I looked, it was relatively low sulfur content.
Well, we're going to bring another picture up,
We are.
and it's going to be up there very shortly.
This is
before
an
we say what it
article
is,
from
but
Quartz.
We've talked about this place before.
We have
so
a number of times.
Some of our listeners or our readers, watchers, whatever, might recognize this.
They might.
That's the Navajo Generating Station in Arizona.
That's right.
2 of America's biggest coal plants closed this month.
This week, Arizona's 2.25 gigawatt means big,
Significant.
Navajo Generating Station burned its last load of coal after no buyers turned up during a 2-year search, and now it's as dead as a canned mackerel. And the bankrupt owner of Pennsylvania's 2.7 gigawatt Bruce Mansfield unit began its shutdown almost 2 years ahead of schedule.
It's economics, stupid.
It is, that's right.
America's coal plants are turning off the boilers. First, the dirtiest ones began shutting down, then it was the old ones. Now it's some of the biggest, as this article tells you.
And now you know why the coal index is at 14.6.
Exactly.
Or
The
16.4.
These 2 retirements equal all the emission reductions from coal plants shutdowns in the year 2015,
And this
when
is-
15 gigawatts of mostly smaller and older units were shuttered.
This is, the 2 of those together are
That's very
just
significant.
about 10 times the size of Vermont Yankee's initial capacity.
And the bottom line is you're not making money.
They're not making money. And now, you know, as I said, you know why the coal index is
Well,
down.
we got an interesting one here. Matter of fact, we got 2 of them almost related. The world's largest floating wind turbine is launching soon in Portugal.
This is from Clean Technica. We're still on Sunday, November 17th. Portugal is about to be the home of the largest floating wind turbine in the world, an 8.4 megawatt ABS-classed offshore wind turbine. It is continental Europe's first large-scale floating wind farm. It is scheduled to go online by the end of 2019, according to a press release.
According to this, apparently it's only 1 turbine,
Yeah,
but it's a big turbine.
yeah, it's a big turbine. This turbine is big enough that it would power Brattleboro.
Oh, sure. It's 20 kilometers off the north coast of Portugal. Matter of fact, you couldn't go any further north and still be in Portugal.
Yes,
Floating turbines are used in water that is too deep for conventional bottom-fixed turbines. That's why they're floating.
right.
And it's interesting because this says it will be the largest floating wind turbine in the world.
Right.
But here's another picture coming up.
Okay, let's put up this other picture. There we go.
And
That's the one you
that
want?
is the one we're now looking at,
And-
which is bigger
Yeah,
than
and
the
this-
largest floating wind
Yeah.
turbine in the world.
And this, by the way, is we're on Monday, November 18th. This
Yeah, we know
article is
that.
from Renews.
NG, or I guess it's pronounced
Angie.
EDPR Select, well, that's the company. Select MHI Vesta's 10 megawatt turbines for Lion Floater. Lion meaning the Gulf de Leon,
Leon.
and floater meaning that it's floating. So it's very much like the one we just talked about.
Angie and EDPR have selected MHI Vestas, I'm not kidding about these letters, to supply 3 10 megawatt turbines to the 30 megawatt Gulf de Leon floating. I'm sorry about my French pronunciation. I don't know anything about French,
I
so I
don't
just have
either.
to fake it.
It's not the Gulf of Lion, though.
No, it's not the Gulf of Lion. Floating offshore wind project, 16 kilometers off the coast of the Mediterranean southern France. The companies plan to use the Port La Nouvelle as the assembly harbor.
Well, this is interesting because we just watched the biggest turbine in the world is 8.4 megawatts.
Biggest floating
And
turbine.
this one's a floating turbine, and it's 10 megawatts.
That's right.
So they didn't get in touch with each other.
Well, the one that is going up in Portugal is actually being installed. This one they aren't installing quite yet. So this one will be bigger, but it's not bigger yet. Okay.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know. You don't think much of France having a Mediterranean coast, but they got a significant one.
It is a big coast. That's right.
I mean,
it runs
Nice
between
is there, I think, and
Marseille.
Marseille.
Yes.
And there's another one that we never heard of, Montpellier.
Monaco is on that coast.
And Monaco is there,
Monaco is not
right?
part of France, but it's on that coast.
It's right on the border.
That coast runs from Italy to Spain, so it's
It's a good-sized coast.
It's a good-sized
I looked at the
coast.
map and I was surprised.
Yep. Okay. All set?
Yeah, really.
We are back to Brattleboro, and
Now,
we
this
have
is
an
an interesting
item
article.
from the Brattleboro
This is an
Reformer.
interesting article. I don't have a picture.
No, there's no picture.
Just going to bring you up there.
No, don't bring me
Oh,
up.
bring
Bring
us-
us
oh,
up.
bring us
Yeah,
up.
bring us up. Nobody wants to look at me.
Ice battery. Ice battery at the retreat lowers energy costs.
Well, this isn't being run right now because it's being run for AC, and I don't think there's any AC
I don't
going
think they're
on in the
using
winter.
AC now.
Okay, an ice battery has been brought back into service at the Brattleboro Retreat. At low demand times, cheap electricity can be used to freeze water in containers. Then, when the day is warm, and this is why it's not happening in the winter, the ice is used to cool water, which is run through air handlers to cool air, avoiding the use of costly electricity for AC.
So the ice is effectively a battery.
That's right.
Absolutely.
One thing in this article that I had been unaware of is that the generating plants at the retreat are apparently not being used right now.
Well, there's a story behind that.
Oh, is there? Okay.
I approached them back when I was selling energy efficient lighting.
Ah, yes.
And my pitch was, you could save so much money on your electricity
Yeah.
that the lighting is free, basically.
Yes.
And the guy said, well, we get a special rate from Green Mountain. Well, then it was public service. We get different, it was different electric company,
Yeah.
but we got a special rate.
Yeah.
And the rate made it so that they couldn't buy my lights.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there is a story behind that
And the
too.
special rate was so that they wouldn't make their own power.
Yep. CVPS was the
CVPS,
utility, which eventually was bought by
Became Green
Green Mountain Power. And what I was told by people at the retreat was that at one time they were upset because they were paying the same rate as regular businesses, I should say. And they are using typically about 370 kilowatts, which is a lot of electricity.
Well, they got a good-sized plant.
So
I've
they
seen it.
said, we should be getting a break on this. And CVPS said, no, you shouldn't. And, just really would not listen to them.
So they built their own.
They said to CVPS, if you can't give us a rate that is better than what we're paying, we're going to build our own generating equipment.
That story's true.
And then, CVPS kind of hemmed and hawed and went away and didn't do anything. The next thing you know, they
built the plant.
They built the plant. They were running the plant. The guys at CVPS were saying, what's going on here? So they went back and agreed to very low rates. So, but the situation has changed under Green Mountain Power, and they couldn't do that going into the future. So I don't know, but they had a microgrid there.
Well, what they're doing now is they're purchasing 70% of its power from a solar energy source via Green Mountain.
Yes.
Okay, and it's running its boilers on vegetable oil. Okay, they're replacing fluorescents with LEDs, which is what I wanted to do a long time ago.
Right.
And recycling paper and plastic waste and composting cafeteria waste.
Right.
So they're serious.
Yes.
They're doing a pretty good job.
Okay, our next item is
another
from
picture coming up.
Inside Climate News.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at that
We have a picture
there.
of pump
couple
jacks.
of donkeys.
Couple of nodding donkeys.
U.S. suspends more oil and gas leases over what could be a widespread problem. And George is going to tell us what that problem is.
The Trump administration's push to expand fossil fuel production on federal lands is hitting a snag, which is its own refusal to consider climate impacts. After advocacy groups sued, the Bureau of Land Management office in Utah voluntarily suspended 130 leases.
This is kind of crazy.
I think what happened was they didn't want to have to do this under a court order.
Is that what's going on?
I would bet,
You think
because
so,
if they got that court order in Utah, it would be precedent for other courts.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. It's a
know,
bigger picture.
There's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
But what is happening is these leases are no good because they haven't done their due diligence, which is typical
That's the problem.
of the administration that we've got.
Well, nearly a quarter of the nation's carbon dioxide emissions come from fossil fuels developed on federal lands.
Yes.
And that's what this is all about.
Yes.
So they're getting the fossil fuels from land that they're leasing, probably at dirt cheap prices.
Probably.
Huh.
Okay, we're up to Tuesday, November 19th,
Moving along.
with an item from oilprice.com.
That's true.
And this, I think, is really an interesting...
This is interesting. We've talked about
not a long
India
article,
a lot.
but by golly, when you think about the implications... Go ahead, Tom.
We've been talking about India a lot.
Yes.
A huge red flag. India shutters power plant citing lack of demand.
Lack of demand. India, where things are expanding, use of power is expanding so much, half of India's power generation capacity using coal and nuclear power is being shut down because of lackluster demand, the Indian Express reports. It added that while some of the shutdowns have lasted only a few days, other power plants have been closed for months.
That doesn't explain why the demand has dropped.
No, it doesn't, unfortunately. But I think when you consider the amount of renewable energy that's going in India, I would expect it to drop.
I bet my money on that, because we have spoken on this show that they are developing
Installing
a lot of renewable
tens
energy.
of gigawatts of renewable energy.
And some of
it's
it is tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a small solar power unit to put on your thatched roof, and it runs your computer and your stove.
Well, one of the big things is getting solar-powered irrigation pumps.
Well, that's a
Because
biggie.
They're
I mean,
irrigation
what we're talking
pumps.
about is individual Indians getting a solar power just to recharge their phone.
Yeah, but you don't need a big array to operate an irrigation pump. On the other hand, if you're going to put diesel oil out to run that pump, you're going to be producing a lot of pollution.
Well, you got to move that diesel oil around.
Yeah, you do. Okay, we're up to GeekWire. We
got a good picture here.
A picture here of the Heliogen commercial facility in California.
And that's not a phone booth, guys. No. This is very interesting because all of those mirrors down there
which look
are
like
individually controlled by a computer.
Yeah.
And they got cameras.
Yeah.
So instead of somebody aiming those things at this thing, they aim themselves.
Yes.
And they can they move that as the sun moves.
Yep.
So it's very precise. And they're getting a lot more power out of there than a conventional reflector type of array.
Yeah, they look like umbrellas at a cafe of some type.
Company backed by Bill Gates claims solar breakthrough, which I just explained, really.
Yes.
Looks to replace fossil fuels in industrial plants.
Heliogen, a company backed by Bill Gates, says it has developed a way to create concentrated solar energy at temperatures hot enough to replace fossil fuels in industrial processes that make significant contributions to global CO2 emissions.
That's the key right there. Hot enough to replace fossil fuels.
You know what the thing that comes to mind here is making cement, where they use huge amounts of oil to break rocks down to dust. And then you mix water with them, and they turn back into rocks again. It's kind of
crazy, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Well, here's what the article says. Concentrated solar thermal plants have been in existence for decades. And we've talked about them.
Yes.
They make sense. In some places, anyhow. In deserts, they make sense.
Yes.
Such plants typically achieve temperatures no higher than 600 degrees centigrade, which are too low for heavy-duty industrial processes.
Although
like you just mentioned.
That's a glow. 600 degrees Celsius, this thing is going to glow.
Yeah.
It's
still going to grow.
This is hot, but it's not as hot as what they want.
Well, their system works by using special cameras and its special software to align this large array of mirrors to a precise target, generating intense heat which exceeds 1,000 degrees centigrade.
Which is growing,
which suddenly
glowing.
makes it very usable.
Yeah. And that is a temperature at which things glow brightly.
It's hot enough to split carbon dioxide and water to make hydrogen.
Right.
And other fossil-free fuels.
Yes. That's interesting that it would be hot enough to break up water.
It is very interesting, yeah. This 2 megawatt array takes up 2 acres. Some of the very, very good sunshine places in the desert.
Yep.
We're going to see more of this coming up.
We got to move on.
Well, we're almost on to the last day.
Almost.
And we got 9 minutes left.
This is from Renewables Now.
It is. No-End, the company, plans 50% expansion of South Australia's big Tesla battery, which we've talked about.
I had to laugh when I saw this. French renewable energy company Neoen confirmed that it has plans to increase the capacity of the Tesla big battery system in South Australia. The 100 megawatt, 129 megawatt hour Hornsdale Power Reserve will be expanded with an additional 50 megawatts, 64.5 megawatt hours of capacity by Tesla.
It's a 50% increase.
It's a 50% increase. This is the one that Elon Musk said, I get this, I will put this in 100 days or it's for free.
Yeah,
remember that.
That's the one.
This
I remember.
Is the famous, this
Yep.
is, I think, one of the best public tricks of, you know, what is it, public? Anyway, never mind.
Well, it's in South Australia. Remember that, because we're going to look at a map of Australia very shortly.
We are indeed.
And I want to add that something's going on in Australia on a big level. It looks like they're intending to become the Saudi Arabia of electricity.
They are, but there's hitches in that too. I saw one of them come up today. Renewable energy installations are dropping, and this is a big deal, and they're meeting on it tomorrow.
So we'll probably be talking about that next week.
Yeah, we probably will be.
Now let's move along here.
We're
We
up
do
to
have a map.
Wednesday, November 20th, and
there
here is
is
the
the
map.
map.
And I want to point, well, let's just read the article and then we can talk about
Australia,
it.
this about the fires.
Yes.
Wow.
BBC.
Australia fires. Catastrophic alerts in South Australia and Victoria. Well, it's more than that.
A catastrophic alert is...
It has special meaning.
Yeah, it is, if you had hurricanes at, you know, the F1 through F5 levels, where F5, this is the equivalent in fires of the F6.
Yeah, right.
You know, this,
exactly.
they're saying this
is
is unbelievable, it's so bad. And what's happened, you've read that, I'll read this. Heat and winds are threatening to widen Australia's bushfire crisis, with 3 states warned to expect their worst conditions of the season so far. In addition to South Australia and Victoria, South Australia and Victoria.
It should say Tasmania, the next word.
No, it should say Queensland. I got that wrong. The first one was Queensland. Queensland and Victoria had declared these already. Now South Australia has been added. Issued a catastrophic alert, the highest danger.
But Tasmania's in trouble too.
So is Victoria.
The whole country's in trouble.
Look at this. Queensland.
Or go back to the map.
Yeah, go back to the map. Queensland in the upper right. Look at how big that is. Australia is almost as big as the United States.
Yep.
This is 8 states and territories. That's all they've got. South Australia, about twice or more the size of Texas, in the middle of the South, is adding itself to this catastrophic alert at Queensland and New South Wales, which is just south of Queensland. The Australian Capital Territory is in New South Wales.
It's like
cited
Washington, D.C.
It's like Washington, D.C. And then you've got Victoria, and below it is Tasmania. And 3 of those states...
They're all in trouble.
They're all in trouble. 3 of those states have already issued catastrophic alerts. Victoria and Tasmania are issuing alerts that are just not at that level yet. But their big season for bushfires is January and February, and we ain't even close to that yet.
No.
This is bad. It's really bad. Okay.
Well, massive bushfires are also burning elsewhere in the country.
Yes.
Blazes in New South Wales and Queensland have destroyed more than 500 houses.
Yes.
Temperatures neared 115 degrees Fahrenheit, exacerbated by winds up to 55 miles an hour. They're in trouble, guys.
They're talking about spotting fires where
Where the
fire
wind is blowing the fire
yeah,
ahead.
the embers are blown out of these, and the wind blows these things like 6 miles away. And so you have a fire, and all of a sudden it's jumped 6 miles. A fire break, the traditional idea of a fire break doesn't work under these circumstances.
No.
We've had that in the United States. There are people who claim that the Peshtigo fire, which happened in, I think it was it was the same day as the Chicago fire, but the Peshtigo fire was in Wisconsin. They say that jumped Green Bay, which is 10 to 20
Wow.
miles across. And they have evidence that supports the idea that may have happened. They have a hardware store sign that got picked up in a fire tornado and dropped someplace like 6 or 8 miles away. And so they know that big things that were on fire were dropped at a great distance from where they started. Okay, we should move on.
Oh, wait, that's the last item we got.
No, it's not.
Is it?
No.
I only have one item left.
We have EasyJet, and then we have homes to sell.
I got EasyJet.
Well, let's do EasyJet.
I do have, yeah, I do have.
Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica.
It is that.
Yes.
EasyJet. First
you better
year-
take us off, because that is for the next one after that.
We'll put us on.
Yeah.
EasyJet announced, EasyJet is the first airline in the world to go carbon neutral starting today. And we've talked about electric airplanes
so fast.
before.
EasyJet announced that from today being yesterday, I'm sorry about that, because when you're viewing this, it isn't today, it's someday in the future.
It's yesterday.
All of its flights will be carbon neutral. It is the first airline to do so from now being November 20th. EasyJet's 331 airplanes will have their carbon emissions balanced through carbon removal efforts. Did you see in there what that was going to be?
Huh?
I think that's planting trees, but I'm not sure.
It is. They talked about planting trees, absolutely.
Oh, okay, I missed it. In the future, the airline is going to switch to sustainable fuels and electric aircraft.
Well, we've already been talking about electrical aircraft 2 or 3 times already.
Oh, yeah.
And who'd have thought? An electric airplane? EasyJet operates throughout Western Europe, and there's a map on their website that shows. And they're all short runs, so this is ideal.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to likely see an electric airliner soon going across the ocean. But these short runs are perfect.
Yeah. We should get to this last one. We don't have much time. This is from Microgrid Knowledge, and that's what that picture of a house is for, although the house is not in Vermont.
Well, let's look at the picture.
Yeah. What do you got for a title?
The house is not in Vermont?
No.
No kidding. Homes to sell renewable energy to businesses in Vermont's first of a kind local energy marketplace. This is interesting. It's a very interesting concept.
Called Vermont Green, a pilot project of LO3 Energy, also looks to solve some haunting industry issues, among them achieving 100% renewable energy, replacing net metering, and simplifying green energy purchases. And I can tell you, this whole thing is complicated enough that I'm absolutely certain it will take an article bigger than what they had in Microgrid.
Well, I was
Knowledge.
just about going to say something like that. Here's how it works very simply. They let homeowners sell energy credits directly to businesses.
Right.
Okay, simplifying, replacing. You said that. The businesses have to be served by Green Mountain Power.
Right.
Okay, it's kind of complicated. It involves auctions and special software technology, which was developed by the microgrid in Brooklyn, New York, that we've talked about.
We have talked about
Okay,
that. Yeah.
so Green Mountain Power handles the billing and compensates the households. And as you said, George, it's complicated. If you want to see how it works, click the link on this, because
Yes.
it gets into it and it does explain it. And I can't understand it myself.
I didn't understand it, but I do understand this.
We're running out of
We're
time.
running out of time. So we'll say have a perfectly lovely week.
I will.
See you next time.
Adios.